The Porsche 959, manufactured by Porsche from 1986 to 1989. First as a Group B rally car, but later was slightly redesigned and engineered to become a street legal Porsche. And in this video, I'm going to play around with what the Porsche 959 could look like if it was built to date with modern Porsche parts. I'm going to redesign it into a 2021 Porsche 959. Welcome back to the channel, it's SketchMonkey here. Now, the Porsche 959 was the car that inspired Mr. Enzo Ferrari himself to build something better, something quicker with the F40. And yes, the F40 is quicker, but not by much. However, what the F40 didn't have was a leather interior, air conditioning, radio, and other luxury features that were standard on the 959. But now let's jump into Photoshop, because there are a few design details I want to show you and compare the 959 to the 911 of the time and see what's actually different in the rear of the design here. And also, if Porsche has made any modern successors to the 959. And here we are once again inside my beloved Photoshop with a beautiful looking Porsche 911 Turbo in silver up there. So what I'm gonna do here is just compare this regular 911 to the 959. It's gonna pop in right there. And also I want to show you that the wheelbase is pretty much the same here in this picture. And then have a look at the rear part of these two cars, which of course is the area where they differ the most. And on top of that, you have a lot more aerodynamic front features and rear as well here. This of course helps the 959 with performance and top speed and acceleration and so on. But the thing here, the 959 doesn't really have that much of a bigger overhang in the rear. Yes, it is longer than you have on the Porsche right here. This ends right here with the bumper, and then you have the 959 going all the way up here. So it's very close. It's not that much longer if you include the 911 bumper on there. But what really makes this 959 look a lot longer in the rear has to do with the shoulder line. So have a look at the original Porsche 911 shoulder line up here. So as you can see, it has the typical, the iconic shoulder line of a Porsche. It goes straight and then it dips right over here above the rear axle. So something like this is how the typical Porsche 911 shoulder line looks from the first model all the way to the 2021 model. So what really makes the 959 look a lot longer in the rear than it actually is compared to a 911, a standard one, is that the shoulder line actually goes almost straight all the way into this beautiful looking wing in the rear. You can see the shoulder line here. It's almost straight all the way back, and then it goes into this wing right there. So if we were to change just this line on the 959, it would obviously become just another 911, and that would be having the shoulder line dip a little bit right before the rear axle, and then we have it go in here and create, we can even have the wing being integrated, something like this, and then the rest of the car dips like this. And if you look at the red part here, you can see that it becomes just another Porsche 911. So it has a lot to do with the shoulder line, and that's of course something that I need to keep if I'm going to modernize this car. So what I'm going to do, I had a choice to either take a modern Porsche 911 and sculpt that into a 959 body, or take a 959 body and add modern features onto that body style. And I decided to go with the latter. So I'm going to take a 959 and modernize that shape with, of course, modern lights, headlights, also shape of the car. I'm going to change a little bit of the greenhouse and so on in the redesign that I'm going to do in just a minute here. But first I want to show you this. So is there any modern successors to the 959 in terms of design here? I'm not talking in terms of engineering and so on, but in the shape, which cars kind of come closest to looking like a 959 in the modern era? Well, I think the Carrera GT with its stretched rear end, and of course it's mid-engine, it's not rear engine here, but when it comes to the looks of it, it could possibly be a modernized version of the 959. You also have, of course, the air intakes right here, and also the lights kind of symbolizes each other, and then you have the wing here on top of here. If we go even more modern than that, we have the 918 Spider, which of course builds on the Carrera GT. So the features are still the same as in the Carrera GT, with the light, the angle of the light, the wing which is up here, and then you have the side intake there, and these all go back to the original 959. But still, these two at the bottom, the Carrera GT and the 918, they are mid-engine cars, and the 918 of course being a hybrid. So what I want to do is take, as I said, the 959 body with a rear engine car and modernize that shape, and that's exactly what we're going to do right now. In the first year in 1986 of Porsche 959 production, it held the title as the world's fastest street legal production car, and it was considered the most technologically advanced road-going sports car ever built, and the first proper supercar. The 959 was one of the first high-performance vehicles to use all-wheel drive system, and it worked so well in the car that Porsche chose to make all-wheel drive standard on all versions of the 911 Turbo, starting with the 993. The water-cooled twin-turbo 6-cylinder boxer engine produced 444 horsepower and was an incredibly compact, efficient, and rugged power unit for its time. It had a top speed of 198 miles per hour with the 0 to 60 time in just 3.6 seconds, and the quarter mile was completed in just 11.8 seconds, which is pretty nuts for the time. The way Porsche installed the turbos on the 959 is pretty unique. Instead of having each turbo bolted on each cylinder bank, the 959 had a sequential turbo setup, which gave the car a much smoother power delivery and less turbo lag. However, me personally, I kind of like turbo lag. It's kind of exciting to see the RPM creep up to 3,000-4,000 RPMs and then just take off like a rocket. It's safe and comfortable, probably less than if you wouldn't have it, but who cares? Turbo lag is fun. The original Group B rally car was introduced in 1983, but the legal version of the Porsche 959 was unveiled at the 1985 Frankfurt Motor Show as a 86 model. However, there was a lot of problems with getting this car into manufacturing, and the car was delayed by more than a year because of all these issues. Now, the car's aerodynamics were designed to increase, of course, stability over the rear, as was the automatic ride height adjustment that became available on the road car. The 961, which was the race car version of the 959, had a fixed suspension system, and the drag coefficient of the 959 was as low as 0.31, and the aerodynamic lift was eliminated completely. And I think it's so cool to have a look at this mold that is actually the build or the mock-up for the 959. You can still see all the notes and all the details in this mock-up, and I think it's so cool that you can still go and visit this and see where it all came from. So the first happy customer deliveries of the 959 to the street version began in 1987, and the price was $225,000. And later, Porsche admitted that the cost of manufacturing, the cost to create one of these 959s, was more than double that. So they lost a lot of money on each sale of the 959, but I'm really happy that they stuck with it and decided to produce the car anyway. And the production ended in 1988 with the 1989 model year, and in total 337 cars were built, and at least one 959 and one rally version called the 961 remain in the Porsche Historic Hall in Stuttgart, Germany. In 1992-93, Porsche did something very interesting. They decided to go into the old manufacturing plants of the 959, find some spare parts, and build 8 additional 959 in 92 and 93. This was 4 years after the production officially ended. So they built 8 more cars. 4 of them were silver and 4 of them were red. And today, these are the most desirable 959s that exist. But the thing is, good luck finding one of those. So we're coming to an end of this redesign. It was a very fun design to do because it's been a while since I did a design like this where I just modernize an older true shape of a car. And I enjoy doing this very much. So what I did is, as you can see, I took design elements and graphics from modern Porsches. The Porsche 911 Turbo. I love these wheels. These wheels are not turbo wheels. These are the Carrera 4, I think, wheels from 2019, 2020. And they just suit this car overall. I mean, all the graphics. The thing with Porsche is that you can take graphics from today's cars, from the 2021 models even, and put those graphics onto an even 1970s Porsche. It's still gonna look good because the basics of the shape of the Porsche, it has remained the same. What really has changed the most is the scale of the car. The Porsche has become such a bigger car nowadays, but the proportions are still there. The proportions and the styling of the car, as you know, the Porsche 911, one of the most iconic shapes there ever been in car design, and that means that if you put modern stuff onto that old shape, it's going to work no matter what. And I think it works here too. Light bars are so in right now, and I think it suits the 959 as it does here. I also wanted to change a little bit of the greenhouse to have it not be so 80s rough in the edges, especially the corner in the A-pillar to the roof. I wanted to smooth that out a little bit and make it smoother and lower the greenhouse a tiny bit, and that will in itself make the car look a lot more modern by doing that tiny change. But other than that, I wanted to keep the long, stretchy rear end of the car, which I've said before, it's not really any longer than the original Porsche 911. It's just a different design and a completely different, more straight shoulder line that stretches further horizontal back instead of dipping down as we're used to seeing on the 911. But the rear overhang is not a big difference from the 911 as I showed you before. And that's about it. I hope you enjoyed this redesign. I'm the Sketch Monkey. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video.